One of the new shapes that you're going to learn in grade 7 is a sphere. And so a sphere, if you picture a basketball or a baseball, that's what a sphere is. And the formulas for a sphere for volume, a little bit different. It's 4/3 pi r cubed. So that's a little bit different than what you're used to with some of the other formulas because there's some division involved. And then the surface area is 4 pi r squared. My advice to you when you're working with the volume in particular is to punch into your calculator, for example, your numbers. So you would do 4 first, then multiply it by pi, then whatever your radius is and cube it, get an answer, and then divide that answer by 3. So those are the steps I would suggest that you use on your calculator in terms of punching in the buttons. So let's look at some examples. So this one says find the volume and surface area of the following. So I'm actually just going to adjust the page a little bit to make it, whoops, wrong way. There. So if we look at this particular one, there's our sphere. The radius is 4, so we have to find the volume and surface area. So we start by writing the formula. So 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. Then we're going to show our work. So we're going to show our substitution line. And then we can get our calculator out and we can punch it into our calculator. So again, the steps that you take on your calculator, 4 times pi times 4 cubed, get an answer and then divide that answer by 3. Now you're going to get decimals, so unless it says otherwise, round it to 1 decimal place. So for this one, you're going to get 268.1 centimeters cubed. For surface area, again, we start with the formula. 4 pi r squared. Our work line, 4 pi times 4 squared. And then our answer. And for that one, we'll get 201.1. And the units are centimeters squared. Now the next shape, this shape here, is a hemisphere. So a hemisphere is just half of a sphere. So then if we think about the volume formula, which was 4 pi r cubed divided by 3, we're going to take that formula, we're going to do all of that, and then we're going to divide it by 2. Now, some people will think, gee, is there another way I can do that? And some people will mistakenly think, couldn't I just divide by 5? But actually, because this is a relationship with division and multiplication, we're actually going to divide by 6 if you wanted to do that. Some people will notice, well, if I'm multiplying by 4 and dividing by 2, couldn't I just multiply by 2? So if you want, you could also use this formula, 2 pi r cubed divided by 3, or you could use this formula, 4 pi r cubed divided by 6. For most of you, I think this is the formula that you're going to find is the easiest one to work with, and I'll go through the steps that you would punch into your calculator. So again, we write our formula, then our work, and then we're going to punch it into our calculator to get the answer. So what you'll punch in is 4 times pi times 5 cubed. Then you'll divide that by 3, and you'll get about 523. Then you'll divide it by 2. So you're just going to divide and then divide. And in the end, you'll get 261.8 if we round that to 1 decimal place. If you try that on your calculator, so give it a try on your calculator, punch those buttons in, see what you get. If you don't get this answer, please call me over or write down a question and make a note to see me about it. And I can show you how to properly punch into your calculator, because it's a little bit complicated for this one because there's so many division steps that you have to take. Now, surface area is an interesting one for a hemisphere, because when you cut that, let's say it's a basketball, when you cut that basketball in half, you have the bowl part, so you have this part here, whoops, I'll use a different color, this part here, which I consider to be the bowl part. And that part will be 4 pi r squared divided by 2. That's the bowl part. But as soon as you cut this, you have created a new surface that was not there initially. So this part in green, this circle, is a new surface that you did not have in this formula. So this part is only the red shaded part. And then you have, what is that shape on top? It's a circle. So this part, this pi r squared, is the green shaded part. So you have to be careful with a hemisphere. If that hemisphere, let's say, was glued on top of a cylinder, then the green surface would not be part of the surface area, because if you glue that hemisphere on top of a cylinder, then that circle is not part of the surface anymore. But if you just have half a hemisphere, picture a grapefruit, then you have the bowl plus the circle on top. That's what this is. So some of you might prefer, you might say, hey, wait a minute, isn't this 4 pi r squared divided by 2? Isn't that 2 pi r squared? Yes, so you could write that. And isn't 2 pi r squared plus 1 pi r squared, wouldn't that be 3 pi r squared? So could I say that my formula for a hemisphere is 3 pi r squared? Yep, if you would like to do that, you could use that formula. Many of you are going to prefer to use this formula, and that's totally fine. So let's now substitute. So we've got 4 pi r squared divided by 2 plus another pi r squared. We punch that into our calculator. We will get, give me a sec as I'm punching it in, 235.6 altogether. So just be careful. A hemisphere is an interesting shape because as soon as you cut it, you've now created a new surface that was not in the original sphere that we have to be aware of.